Lumion Materials Options. In the previous lecture, we learned how to use and apply ready-made Lumion materials that comes in Lumion library. They are beautiful and easy. But what if we want to adjust these materials? Then it's time to learn all about the options and adjustments that we can do to Lumion materials. Let's open up our Lumion scene. Go to Material Mode and click on that wall that has bricks material applied to it. And now we will have the properties of this material that we can adjust. First, we have here the material name and a small arrow that gets us back to material libraries if we want to choose another one. And here we have material preview and three maps. The color map, which is the picture responsible for the color of that material, and in other software it is called the diffuse map. Normal map, and this is responsible for the bump that represents the grooves in that material. And lastly, the displacement map that is responsible for more strong 3D grooves of that material. Then we have here a small bar that has some icons for copy materials, paste materials, save material to custom material, load material, and save material. And those will be very useful when we want to reuse our adjusted materials in this project or other projects as well. And then we have a bunch of sliders that we can use to adjust our materials. Those sliders are colorization, gloss, reflectivity, relief, displacement, and map scale. And at the bottom, we have a small tab that shows more options. If we click it, we will have more extended settings like position, orientation, transparency, settings, weathering, and foliage. Now let's dive in and take a deeper look of all those ways of adjustments. Let's start with the color map. If we click it, we can change that brick photo to any photo that we like. For example, if we select that marble tiles photo, it will replace our brick color map like that. And if we don't like that, we can get back to our original map by clicking that bin icon here called Remove Color Map. And now we are back to our original brick map. Notice that once we changed the color map, Lumion automatically created a normal map as well for that metal. And now we can delete that as well to get back to our bricks normal map like this. The last map is the displacement map, and that what is responsible for giving the look of that 3D grooves of bricks based on a black and white picture, where black are more grooved inwards than the whites. We can change that pattern by choosing another black and white picture of another pattern. And we can control the depth of that groove by that displacement slider down here. Now let's talk about those sliders. First one is called colorization. We have a slider, a type in value button, and then we have a small color picker that is now set to white. If we click it, we will have two options, RGB and RAL. If we go to RGB, we will find that color picker where we can pick a color. Or if we press show more here, we can put numerical values for a specific color that we want. If we go to RAL, we will have a drop-down menu where we can select a color, yellow for example, and we will have a palette of different variation for that color. Let's get back to RGB and set it to blue, for example, like that. Still no change appears on our material because the colorization is set to 0. If we click and drag that slider like that, the intensity of the blue color on our material will increase like that. Controlling of that slider can be slowed by pressing Shift like that if we want a very precise result. Or we can type in a value for colorization ranging from 0 to 1. Let's put in 0.5 for example, and it will be right at the middle. Next, we have the gloss slider. Increase it and our material will look glossy, like that. Decrease it and it will get back to matte. A quick note here, the value we can put here ranges from 0 to 2. Let me turn it back to 1. Next slider is reflectivity. Increase it and the material will be more reflective, like that. Decrease it and it's less reflective. And then we have relief, and that corresponds to bump values in other 3D software. Increase it and the edges become more sharp and defined. Decrease it and the edges gets more blurry and less defined, like that. And then we have displacement slider, and that slider is only available in materials with a small D letter on their preview. Decrease displacement, it decreases the grooves of that materials. Increase it and it increases the groove of the material in 3D as if it has been extruded inwards, like that. And the last slider we have is Map Scale - Custom, and that will control how big is that pattern of our material is represented on our object. Increase it and we have bigger bricks like that. Decrease it and the bricks gets smaller, like that. And those were the main properties of most materials. Let's move to the extended materials options where we have all the magic. First, we have position. And here we can control X offset, Y offset, and Z offset. On the right here, we have an option to copy and paste whatever settings that we did to other materials. Next, we have orientation, where we can rotate our materials in heading, pitch, or bank. We will set them to 0 for now. The next icon is for transparency, and we have two types of transparency. One is waxiness, and that is how a material is transparent, but it's like wax or a marble that you can see light through it. We can increase that or decrease it through this slider like that. Or we can move to a different type of transparency by taking that normal transparency down here and increase it like that, so we can see through our material. Next, we have settings icon, and here we have options like emissive, and that option is useful for neon light lamps or TV screens. Saturation controls how saturated are the colors of our material. Specular, how shiny is our material, and that appears more clearly in metals. And lastly, we have flicker reduction, and we use that when we have a flickering error. And that sometimes occurs in animation where some faces keeps flashing different colors, and that option is here to fix that. And down here we have three icons for texture alpha, and that tells Lumion what to do with an alpha channel. Like if we put a PNG photo in the color map that has transparency in it, first icon, should that alpha channel masks reflectivity? In that case, alpha channel will make a difference in reflectivity between what's transparent and what's not. We can see that clearly when we increase reflectivity. The second icon would be to clip object, and the third icon would be to mask emissiveness. In that case, alpha channel will make a difference in emissiveness between what's transparent and what's not. We can see that clearly when we increase emissive. These options would be useful in very specific examples of materials that we will explain later on. And then we have weathering. How old is that material? We have this bar of weathering and 9 types down here. Let's choose stone and increase the weathering, and Lumion magically understands how that material will look old if it is a stone-like material, and then applies that to our material so it looks old. Notice the dirt here that accumulates at the corners. Increase it even more and we now have a green dirt added, and our materials looks really old. There is another slider down there called edging. Increase it and more dirt is added to the edges and grooves of our material. We can change the type of weathering from stone to wood or leather or silver or aluminum and all those types. The last icon we have is foliage, and that options create 3D foliage of climbing plants on the objects that we applied materials on. Let's increase the spread from here, and there they are, very beautiful climber plants all over our walls. Increase the spread, that will increase how they are spreaded along our wall. Increasing the ground level can cover all the walls in climbers plants. Leaf size will control how large are our leaves, and when we decrease the leaf size, it adds more small leaves in that area. Leaf type changes the type of leaves of that climber plants to some very amazing options like these. Spread pattern will put more spaces between those plants like this, or make them condense together. And lastly, ground level will control how high the plants goes. If we like that settings of our foliage, we can simply click here and copy, and we can go to our fence here and give it some metal material. we can go to the foliage option in that metal material and paste the same type of foliage on our walls. And there we have the foliage covering the fence. And that's pretty cool, huh? And now that we learned all the basic options of Lumion materials, there are a bunch of special materials in Lumion that has different options than those. Let's learn about those special materials in the next lecture.